This is a video about factoring. First of all, you can factor out the greatest common factor. For example, in this problem, there is an x at the beginning and at the end. You can factor that x out, leaving you with 3x. And why does that work? Because x times 3x results in 3x squared. Now, what do you think would result in the x at the end of the original problem? Well, you would need a positive 1. So write down a positive 1. Because 1 times the x that's on the outside of the parentheses would make x. And that's the same as the original problem. So the purpose of factoring is to break something down into one quantity multiplied by another quantity. For example, I can put parentheses around the x to show you that that is one quantity multiplied by the other quantity, and if you distribute this x times the 3x, you'll get 3x squared. If you distribute the x times the 1, you'll get positive x. So you'll get 3x squared plus x. So that shows you that this first factor multiplied by the second factor results in the original problem, which is up there. Now, sometimes you have to factor things called trinomials. Trinomials are things like this: x squared plus 5x plus 6. So once again, our purpose is to write two quantities, which I'll write in parentheses, that will multiply together and make x squared plus 5x plus 6. So here are some strategies. First, look at the first term. There's x squared, which can be written as x times x. So put an x and an x in the first part of both parentheses. Next, look at the sign in the middle. It's a positive sign, so write that sign down in the middle of the first factor. Next, multiply the two signs together. So multiply this positive sign times this positive sign, and you'll get another positive sign. So put another positive sign in the second factor. Then you look at the last number, which is 6. So if you look at that 6, you need to find two numbers that multiply to make 6. So 1 times 6 or 2 times 3. And how do you know which is the right pair of numbers? Well, you check the right pair of numbers by looking back at the number in the middle of the original problem, which is 5. So I'm circling 5. So does 1 plus 6 equal 5 or 2 plus 3 equal 5? 2 plus 3 equals 5, so I'm going to pick 2 and 3. Because 2 times 3 equals 6 and 2 plus 3 equals 5. So I'm going to put down a 2 and a 3, and now I'm done. And you can check if you want to make sure that I've really factored it, because x plus 2 multiplied, if you FOIL that, you will get x plus 2 times x plus 3, and you'll end up with x squared plus 5x plus 6. So that is the final answer. And then last of all, there are some problems that you can factor which have a number at the beginning of the trinomial. For example, you might have 3x squared plus 5x plus 2. In order to do those problems, you first multiply the number at the beginning of the problem times the number at the end of the problem. So take the 3 multiplied by the 2, and then you'll get 6. Then you break that number 6 down into a pair of two numbers that multiply to make 6 and that add up to equal the middle number. And we already did that before, so we already know that 2 and 3, those two numbers multiply to make 6 and they add up to make 5. Then what you do next is you will write down two factors, and now you'll reduce the x down to the x squared down to x, but keep the 3. So write 3x at the beginning of both factors, because the original problem that we were working on began with 3x. So we'll put a 3x inside of both factors. Then put the numbers that we picked, positive 2 and positive 3. Now what you do next is you see if there's any number that can be canceled that's in common to both of those factors. So the very first thing we learned about was factoring out a common factor. Well, in this first problem, 3x plus 2, there's no number that can be canceled out. So we can divide it by 1. In the second factor, there is something that's in common, which is a 3, so we can divide it by 3. So the first one, the only number that would go into it was 1, because 1 goes into anything. So it becomes, let me move over here, it becomes 3x squared plus 2, because 1 divided into anything is just the same thing. Again, the second factor, 3x plus 3, if you divide that by 3, becomes x plus 1, and then we're done. So the answer to the problem, that last problem, is parentheses 3x plus 2, parentheses, x plus 1, close parentheses. And that's how you do it.